Episode 23: National Accounts. It is often assumed that while, for the protection of shareholders, it should be a legal requirement for private businesses to keep a set of books composed of a balance sheet and a profit and loss account, it is not necessary for a nation-state to be subject to the same demands. But what if this assumption is incorrect? According to the social credit analysis of Major C.H. Douglas, not to be confused with Chinese social credit, a national balance sheet and a national profit and loss account are indispensable preambles for implementing the national monetary policy that was introduced in episode 10. You will recall that the purpose of a national monetary policy is to provide the real economy with a properly designed financial software so that it can fulfill its true purpose to the extent that this is physically possible. The delivery of the goods and services which people need to survive and flourish with the least amount of labor and resource consumption. A properly designed financial software was presented, in turn, as an honest system, which accurately represents, in the virtual world of numbers, the objective facts concerning the real world of physical economic realities. It would provide us with a truthful picture of both our potential and real wealth. Now, the first step in setting up a national monetary policy that actually serves the authentic common good is for the nation-state to assert its sovereignty over the financial system. Nature abhors a vacuum, and if the nation-state fails to correctly determine the overarching policy of the financial system, private interests acting through the medium of the banking system will manipulate that policy in their own favor and at the expense of the common good. Once the sovereignty of the public authority has been re-established over the financial system, the second step in implementing a national monetary policy is to task a national credit authority with the introduction of a national set of books. By measuring the financial position of the national economy with respect to both productive capacity and surplus production, we can transform the financial system into an honest system, i.e., one that will accurately reflect the physical economic realities. This measurement would be accomplished by a national balance sheet on the one hand and by a national profit and loss account on the other. A national balance sheet would present a realistic valuation in monetary terms of all of the economic resources and concurrently available production of a country over and against which money could be issued. The economic resources, i.e. land, labor, real capital, and various intangible goods, and the available production, i.e. the flow of goods and services coming onto the market, would be classified as the country's assets, while the financial demands made on those assets, chiefly in the form of the money supply, would constitute the country's liabilities. This way of representing a nation's balance sheet makes it clear that it is the productive capacity of a nation, alongside the goods and services that are on offer, which ultimately give value to money. The relevance of the national balance sheet for the financial facilitation of production under a national monetary policy is as follows. One can rightly expect, in any given case, for the value of assets on a national balance sheet to significantly exceed that of the liabilities, as no country has ever managed to call on the entirety of its productive capacity. This net worth, i.e. the value of national assets minus national liabilities, would form the basis upon which additional money could be issued. It shows us that the nation is creditworthy, and it gives us some idea as to the extent of that creditworthiness. So long as there are unmonetized items in the registry of national productive assets, additional credit for production could be created and lent to productive organizations so that this potential might be actualized in the form of additional goods and services. Insofar as there are also unmet needs amongst the members of the population, due to a physical lack of supply, the additional producer credit necessary to increase the flow of production not only could but should be created and issued to the appropriate agencies on behalf of the community. A national profit and loss account, on the other hand, would compare the value of what a nation produces with the volume of claims in the form of consumer incomes, which it simultaneously distributes to consumers. On one side of the ledger, we would have a list of total production, both capital and consumer goods and services, as measured in remunerative prices delivered within a specified period of time, say a year. This is a nation's available supply. On the other side, we would have all the incomes concurrently distributed in the form of wages, salaries and dividends. This is a nation's available demand. The relevance of a national profit and loss account for the financial facilitation of consumption under a national monetary policy is as follows. Insofar as the remuneratively priced value of consumer goods and services produced exceeds the incomes distributed in the course of their production, there is a societal profit. This profit should be monetized via the creation of debt-free credit and then issued to or on behalf of society's rightful shareholders, the common citizens. The national dividend and the national discount or compensated price are two methods for effecting this distribution. Episode 21. Social Credit and Classical Distributism. We are often told that in order to create a distributist economy, it is necessary that everyone should run his own business, either on his own or in cooperation with others. But what if this isn't true? According to the social credit analysis of Major C.H. Douglas, not to be confused with Chinese social credit, a distributist economy, i.e. one which ensures a widely distributed ownership in private productive property, can be achieved by other means, namely through monetary reform. When Hilaire Belloc and G.K. Chesterton, the founders of classical distributism, looked out at the dawn of the 20th century on the capitalist and socialist weeds that were growing in the economic garden, they concluded rightly that there must be a better way of organizing economic life. For inspiration, they looked back on the High Middle Ages when many men owned not merely their labor, but also their tools and even the land they tilled. If the economic garden were to yield more satisfactory results, it had to be based on this type of widespread and more equitable distribution of private productive property. They then argued that a proprietary state, a society of owners, could only be established under modern conditions by enfranchising the workers as direct owners or co-owners of the businesses in which they worked. Single proprietorships, small family businesses and cooperatives, where appropriate, would be the norm. But there is another way by means of which such ownership could be widely and more equitably distributed, the social credit way. Instead of directly distributing ownership to the workers, the institution of a national dividend and a national discount is based on the distribution of a beneficial ownership in private productive property to each citizen, whether he be employed or not. You see, real capital, i.e. machines, equipment, software, etc., causes two problems in the modern economy. Both problems go largely unrecognized by classical distributists. On the one hand, real capital is the main factor contributing to the price-income gap, as capital costs are not fully nor automatically offset by income to consumers under the existing financial system. And, on the other hand, real capital also displaces labor by making it possible for us to produce more and/or better with fewer and fewer people working. This results in increasing technological unemployment. But who owns the real capital? Regardless of any direct or titular ownership, social credit maintains that the citizens should be credited as the beneficial owners of real capital. Why? Because the citizens are rightly regarded as individual shareholders in their economies and as heirs to that which makes the real capital, as the single greatest factor in modern production, possible: the cultural heritage of society. It is not labour which is responsible for the value contributed to the economy by real capital, but rather the inventions, discoveries, know-how, etc. that have been bequeathed to us by yesteryear's engineers, scientists, and so forth. By monetizing the gap with debt-free credit and distributing it via the dividend and the discount to the citizenry, the social credit monetary reform kills two birds with one stone. It eliminates the gap caused by real capital by rendering the financial system self-liquidating, and by enfranchising everyone as a beneficial owner of the real capital, it distributes this additional consumer buying power in such a way that even those who are without employment can retain access to the flow of goods and services. A proprietary state of the social credit kind recognizes that the distributist economy of the fourth industrial revolution must be archaeo-futurist in nature, combining the best from the past with unprecedented innovations in economic life. This animated series was sponsored by the Clifford Hugh Douglas Institute for the Study and Promotion of Social Credit.
So this is the Mechanics Institute. This should be Swindon's pride and glory, because this is the precursor to the NHS. Now, in Britain, if you're not aware, the NHS has taken on the aspect of a religion, and it was the Mechanics Institute that inspired this, because what this was a service that was contributed to by the railway workers, who in the 19th century all worked and lived in these rows of houses around us. And so they'd all contribute a small amount of their wages to the Mechanics Institute, and that would provide a free health service, free at the point of delivery, to these people. So it was privately run, but it was publicly accessible for the people in this area. And this was a very popular and productive form of healthcare. And so this became the template for the National Health Service itself. And look at the state of it. Look at the absolute state, the decay of this building. I mean, not only is this probably, or would have been, the nicest building in Swindon, but it's also part of Swindon's heritage and contribution to the country. And so you think nationally, the government that is constantly banging on about the NHS would be interested in preserving something like this. Why not turn it into a museum or a library or something? Just spend a few £1 renovating it, restoring it, and then open it to the public so people could come and have it as a museum of the NHS. If you really care about the NHS that much, this is really not a very big job. But as I understand it, something like 20 years ago, it was purchased by a chap for a few £1 who has done nothing with it. I think it's been purchased a couple of times, and the council have never been able to get any motion on it. And so it's just left here to do nothing, apart from the very depressing murals around, which remind us just how bad things can be. I don't know why they choose these dour, black and white, sallow-faced people over there to be the positive representation of Swindon. I mean, preserving what matters in our community. How is this being preserved? This is being left to decay. And if I had £5 million, I'd buy it and do it up. Why not? It'd be a lovely thing. And again, you can't see the full extent of the issue, but it used to be gorgeous. Let's go around. I'll dig up some old photos of it to put alongside this. Look, see? The blueprint for the NHS. Okay, then why are we leaving it like this? Just have some government intervention. Sort this out. If you're so proud of the bloody NHS, do something about it.